Everyone, and welcome to Using Picture Perfect Science in Distance Learning, Top 10 Tools and Tips.
I'm Karen Ansberry.
And I'm Emily Morgan. We're going to be sharing a lot of resources with you today. There's no need to write them all down. We've created a Padlet with all the links, including a recording of today's webinar. You can find the link for the Padlet in the chat. Karen and I are the authors of the Picture Perfect Science series for NSTA Press. These books are filled with lessons that integrate science and literacy through the use of high-quality, engaging picture books. Our first book was Picture Perfect Science Lessons, followed by more Picture Perfect Science Lessons, and then even more Picture Perfect Science Lessons. And our two newest books are Picture Perfect STEM Lessons for grades K2 and Picture Perfect STEM for grades 3-5. Altogether, we have 80 lessons that integrate STEM and literacy for grades K through 5.
So just a little bit more about us. In addition to the Picture Perfect series, we co-wrote Teaching Science Through Trade books with Dr. Christine Royce. We're both former elementary teachers and curriculum specialists. We facilitate science workshops together all over the country and virtually, and we're both children's book authors. Nature Did It First is my first children's book. It's a kid-friendly introduction to biomimicry with beautiful illustrations by Jennifer DeRubio, playful rhymes, and nonfiction content. So biomimicry is an approach to solving human problems by mimicking nature. Reading this book aloud and using the online Biomimicry Design Challenge can help you meet the NGSS performance expectation about using materials to design a solution to a human problem by mimicking how plants and animals use their external parts.
And I Write the Next Time You See picture book series published by NSTA Kids. Each book features an ordinary natural object or phenomenon, and the idea is that the next time you see that natural object, you will see it in a whole new way. My two latest books are Next Time You See a Bee and a new book about questioning called Never Stop Wondering. So Picture Perfect Science has three main components: of course, the picture books, the 5 E's, and the STEM disciplines. And if you notice in this graphic, the STEM gear is the largest because student learning of the STEM concepts is what drives everything else. The picture books and the 5 E's come in to support student learning of those STEM disciplines. And of course, those STEM disciplines are science, technology, engineering, and math. We use the 5E model to sequence our lessons. And we use both fiction and nonfiction picture books throughout our lessons.
So everything we do at Picture Perfect Science revolves around this mission statement. We are dedicated to making STEM education more meaningful for children through the use of hands-on explorations, engineering design challenges, engaging stories, and interesting nonfiction. Our goal is to help teachers seamlessly integrate STEM and reading so that students are reading to learn as well as learning to read. So before we dive into how you can use Picture Perfect lessons in distance learning, let's take a minute to talk about why this is important. There was a recent WestEd survey that found that last spring, 88% of students spent somewhat or significantly less time on science. Of course, last spring, schools were scrambling to adjust to online learning, but this is a situation that we don't want to repeat this fall. Your students really need those critical STEM learning experiences. So here are our top 10 tools and tips for using Picture Perfect in distance learning.
Our first tip is about the read-alouds. In our program, reading the picture books is a key part of the lessons. For distance learning, we recommend sharing the books live with students or making recordings of yourself reading them aloud. Make them as engaging and as interactive as possible. Stop to ask questions, model your thoughts and wonderings, give it an engaging setup, or even stop partway through to invite students into an activity before finishing the book. So here's an example of how Katie, a teacher from Georgia, made her recorded read aloud engaging and personal.
Hello, everybody. Today's read aloud is going to be about something that we all are pretty familiar with. I have one crawling on me right now. You might know it as a roly-poly, but some also call this a pill bug because the body is shaped a little bit like a pill. Get it back on my finger here. And I was just playing around in my garden today and found a whole bunch of roly-polies and thought it would be fun to do a quick video and read aloud about these creatures. So the book I'm going to read is called Next Time You See a Pill Bug by Emily Morgan. Next time you see a pill bug, gently pick it up and hold it in your hand. Does it roll up into a ball? If so, be still and wait a few seconds for it to unroll. Let it crawl around. Look closely. What shape is it? What color is it? Can you count its legs?
So this read aloud is featured in a lesson called Pillbots, which is from Picture Perfect STEM for K2. The lesson also features the nonfiction book Robots from National Geographic.
You may be wondering about the legalities of recording yourself doing read alouds. Well, we found that there is growing consensus among copyright experts that posting online read alouds during the coronavirus emergency constitutes fair use. But take care to restrict access and further distribution of the read aloud to the public. Use your school's learning management system, a school-based or teacher-maintained website, or a private channel on YouTube or a similar platform in order to limit distribution to the public. And as always, as you're doing the read aloud, credit the author and illustrator. Be advised that we are not legal experts. So ideally, students want to see you and hear you during their distance learning read alouds, but it's great to mix it up with some high quality content that's already been recorded. On the Padlet, we have a nice read aloud of a book called Beep Beep Go to Sleep that goes with our Robots Everywhere lesson, as well as this really awesome reading of Jackrabbit McCabe and the Electric Telegraph. You'll love Miss Stephanie's reading voice. So this book is featured in chapter 12 of our STEM K2 book. It's called Get the Message. And we also use a nonfiction book called Communication Long Ago and Today. It's really important with distance learning that students have a common experience with phenomena, and no one student has an advantage or disadvantage. So when you're selecting picture perfect lessons to teach, consider teaching those lessons with phenomena that are accessible to all learners at home. So for example, all kids could go outside and observe how the moon seems to change. They can all notice that some surfaces feel hotter in the sun than in the shade. And in our pollination lesson, you can have students find a flower somewhere in their yard or neighborhood to observe and take apart and even notice the pollen inside. And that lesson is chapter 18, Flight of the Pollinators. We also use a book called Flowers Are Calling, which is a really beautiful picture book, and a nonfiction text called What is Pollination?
Tip number 3 is to make the student pages fillable using online tools such as Adobe Acrobat DC, Kami, PDF Escape, Google Slides, or Formative, and then post them in your LMS or other protected site. So this is a closed paragraph from the lesson titled Light It Up from the 3-5 STEM book. In this lesson, students learn the vocabulary in the closed paragraph from a nonfiction book called How Things Work, Light Bulbs, which is followed by a fun story called Orion in the Dark that inspires students to design a night light for someone who's afraid of the dark. And that's chapter 9 of our 3-5 STEM book.
Again, equity is really important to keep in mind during distance learning. Make sure that the investigations and design challenges can be done safely at home by all learners. In the Let's Drum lesson, students design a drum using materials they can find at home or even in their recycling bin. You might recognize those Pringles cans on the right. And here's an example of an investigation on sound waves recorded at home by a student using Flipgrid.
Hi, I'm Izzy and Suki. What do you think will happen if With these sprinkles, if I hit this spoon on these drums, you know? Example of sound
And that's from chapter 11, Let's Drum, from our K2 book. It features a book called Drum Dream Girl and a book called Drum City.
Tip number 5 is to transform hands-on activities into demonstrations performed by you. Some students might not have access to the materials at home to do the investigations. So you can give students opportunities to share their prior knowledge, ask questions, make observations and predictions as they watch you do these activities. Here's an example from a lesson called Feel the Heat, where students learn about how the sun warms Earth's surface.
Hi, boys and girls, it's Mrs. Morgan. It is a hot and sunny day out here. I'm out on my deck at my house today, and since we've been talking about how some places feel warmer than others when we're outside, I thought we could do a little experiment together. So I have a special thermometer here called an infrared thermometer, and I can take the temperature of surfaces with this. So let's take the temperature of some different surfaces on my deck. All right, here we are. So look around and see, what surfaces should I take the temperature of? We want to try in the sun and in the shade. Okay, I see that Myron says we should try the brick in the sun and shade. We have a really good example right here. So before I do that with my digital thermometer, my infrared thermometer, which one do you predict will be hotter or higher in temperature, the sun or the shade? Go ahead and make your predictions. All right, let's give it a try. So let's do the shade first. Oh, 96 degrees exactly. 96 degrees Fahrenheit for the shade. And the sun, 101.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Wow, what a difference. All right, so what else should we try? Copper, I don't think he'll stay still enough. All right, so I'm gonna see if I can feel the difference. That was a pretty big temperature difference. So I'm just gonna use my hand and feel the brick in the shade, the brick in the sun, and wow, I can really feel the difference. This is much cooler over here in the shade and much warmer over here in the sun. So if you don't have the infrared thermometer at home, you can use your hand to feel the difference in temperature if you have a nice sunny day like today.
So sometimes we get really big temperature differences with this lesson. This is from a workshop we did in St. Louis, and there was a heat wave there, and the blacktop in the shade was 102 degrees Fahrenheit, and the blacktop in the sun was 139.1 degrees Fahrenheit. So kids will be surprised at how big the differences can be in the sun and the shade. This lesson features the story Summer Sun Risin' and the nonfiction book The Sun, Our Nearest Star, and it's chapter 9 in the K2 STEM book.
There are some good and mostly free tech tools available for visualizing student thinking and brainstorming in real time. In this example done on Padlet, students are recording responses from a survey they did at home with their family in response to the question, why does the moon look different throughout a month? This is from chapter 17 of Picture Perfect Science Lessons. It's called The Changing Moon, and we use a book called Next Time You See the Moon and a book called Papa, Please Get the Moon for Me.
Tip 7 is to provide ongoing feedback. Feedback is one of the single most powerful influences on student achievement. Feedback is important in every classroom, but when you're teaching online, it's even more important. And it's another way to establish that personal connection with your students. Feedback should be frequent, specific, balanced, and timely. If you're looking for a way to provide timely feedback, audio may be your best bet. You can quickly record your voice and send the files off to each student. If you need to help students through a complicated problem with multiple steps, video feedback might be the best solution. Especially in an online classroom, audio or video feedback can help students feel less isolated.
Before we go on to more tips, we'd like to hear from you. What are your favorite tech tools for distance learning? Go ahead and type the name of the tool in the chat as well as what you like to use it for. Some good distance learning tech tools to check out are Padlet, Jamboard, Nearpod, and Bitmoji. Seesaw and Flipgrid are great also for responding to prompts, making predictions and observations, collaborating with peers, and having students share their work and their projects. There are lots of great tutorials online to help you get started with whatever tech tool you choose. But it's easy to get overwhelmed. So start with what you know and what your students are used to. Google Classroom or Class Dojo or whatever you're already using, and then gradually add in new tech tools. But remember, technology is just a tool. There's no substitute for good teaching, and there's no technology that can replace you. So keep up those personal relationships that you build with students. Find ways to connect and let them know that you're there for them. Your kids are going to miss seeing your face, so try using Zoom or Google Meet to hold morning or weekly meetings or just get together to chat. They really like getting a glimpse into your home life, seeing your house, meeting your pets and kids, watching you sip your coffee in your comfy clothes. Maybe you could try holding small online group lunch meetups and think about low-tech things too, like phone calls, drive-bys. Postcards are always a hit too.
Tip number 8 is to get families involved. Each lesson in the Picture Perfect STEM books has a STEM at Home page that gives students a chance to share what they've learned and an activity to do with someone at home. Sometimes it involves watching a video and responding. Sometimes it's an experiment. Sometimes it's a design challenge. This one is from a lesson called Burn that has to do with combustion. So this STEM at Home talks about fire safety. They read a fire safety checklist and go from room to room together to answer the questions, and then they add up their score. Then they talk about ways to make their home safer. This is chapter 10 in the 3-5 STEM book and features the books Burn, Michael Faraday's Candle, and Wildfires from National Geographic.
Tip number 9. The box at the end of each STEM lesson provides more opportunities for extending the learning at home. You can have students choose a question such as, can you design a plant experiment to be performed on the International Space Station? Or they can come up with their own questions. They'll conduct their research at home and design their own procedures or solutions to a design problem. And we have some handy think sheets in chapter 5 that you can upload for them. We have a research think sheet, investigation think sheet, and an innovation think sheet. When they're finished, they can communicate their findings through a digital science notebook, at an online poster session, or maybe by producing a media project. This example was from chapter 15 of STEM lessons, grades 3 through 5. It's called From Seed to Tree. And we also use a book called If You Hold a Seed and one called The Next Time You See a Maple Seed.
The first 3 Picture Perfect books have an inquiry place section at the end of every lesson that provides questions students could investigate on their own. These examples are from the primary lesson titled, Do You Know Which Ones Will Grow?, where students learn about living and non-living things. A question like, does a seed need sunlight to sprout, could be answered by doing an experiment at home. This lesson was featured in one of NSTA's daily do's. These daily do's provide ways for teachers and families to engage children in sense-making activities. We have a link to the daily do's on the Padlet. It's a great remote learning resource. Do You Know Which Ones Will Grow is chapter 11 in even more Picture Perfect science lessons. It features the book titled Do You Know Which Ones Will Grow? And the nonfiction book What's Alive?
Tip number 10. For summative assessments, it's a good idea to focus on creation. So models, inventions, digital posters, videos, and so on. Here's an example from our lesson called Robots Everywhere that was done by a student with Flipgrid.
Hi, I'm Izzy, and I invented the trash spot. This takes the place of a broom and dustpan and picks up the garbage or toys that you left on the ground. It replaces a broom and dustpan, and it scoops up the toys if they're on the floor.
This is from Chapter 8, Robots Everywhere. And we also use a book called Beep Beep Go to Sleep and National Geographic Kids Robots. This is a distance learning schedule that we pulled from the internet. So what do you notice about the time that students are spending on screens? Well, a lot of schools are going to be using a synchronous schedule like this. And that's not necessarily good or bad. Everyone is just, trying to see what works best for their students. But this can add up to 4 to 6 hours of screen time a day. So we have one last bonus tip for you.
And that is to balance screen time with green time. There's a growing body of research showing that time in nature is a necessity, not just something to do in our leisure time, but something essential to our mental and physical health. Just 5 to 10 minutes in a natural setting can lower our stress levels, reset our minds, and renew our focus. On my website, emilymorganbooks.com, I have a blog featuring suggestions for green breaks that can help children and adults de-stress and refresh their minds. There are also some free read-alouds there, and we have a link to that on the Padlet.
So don't forget to check out our Padlet. There's lots of great resources on there. We'd love for you to check out our website and join our Friends of Picture Perfect Science Facebook page.
Karen and I usually spend our summers traveling around the country doing Picture Perfect workshops, but this summer we've moved everything online. We have a workshop coming up next week, August 4th through 6th, and we have a Train the Trainer component available the following day on August 7th for those interested in doing their own Picture Perfect STEM workshops in their school or district. If you'd like to learn more about these learning opportunities, you can get all of the details at pictureperfectscience.eventbrite.com. So we want to end with this quote from Rachel Carson. She said, "If a child is to keep alive his inborn sense of wonder, he needs the companionship of at least one adult who can share it, rediscovering with him the joy, excitement, and mystery of the world we live in." And we know that for many of your students, you are that one adult who can share the joy, excitement, and mystery of the world we live in. And we appreciate all you're doing to keep that wonder alive, even through this time of distance learning. Our contact information is here if you'd like to stay in touch. We welcome you to reach out through email, our website, or social media to ask questions and to share your experiences with Picture Perfect Science. We thank you all for coming and wish you all the best in the coming school year.